Okay, are we all set?
We are.
Well, howdy, folks. I have a book here that's called a Christmas Carol book. And in it there is a very strange Christmas carol. It's a story. And I'm going to sing and read you the story about Good King Wenceslas. Never heard of him before, have you? Here's the way it goes. Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen. I don't know what the feast of Stephen was, but that's why. When the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even, brightly shone the moon that night, though the frost was cruel, when a poor man came in sight, gathering winter fuel. Here was this old guy trying to find enough sticks from the ground so that he could warm up. Now the next line is about a page. A page is a guy who runs errands for the boss. Now, ladies might know that there's such a thing as a page boy haircut. It's just a haircut that's sort of close to your head, and they call it a page boy haircut. Anyway, it doesn't have a lot to do with this page. So, next thing is that good King Wenceslas is saying, "Hither, page, and stand by me, if thou know'st it telling, yonder peasant, who is he, where and what his dwelling? Sire, he lives a good deal hence, underneath the mountain, right against the forest fence, by St. Agnes' fountain. Bring me flesh and bring me wine, bring me pine logs hither," whole logs, not sticks. "Thou and I will see him dine, when we bear them thither." Page and monarch forth they went together, through the rude wind's wild lament and the bitter weather. "Sire, the night is darker now, and the wind blows stronger. Fails my heart, I know not how, I can go no longer," says the page. "Mark my footsteps, my good page, tread thou in them boldly. Thou shalt find the winter's rage freeze thy blood less coldly." In his master's steps he trod, where the snow lay dinted. That's mean the footprint of the boss was there. He was in the very sod which the saint had printed. Therefore, Christian men, be sure, wealth or rank possessing, you who now will bless the poor, shall yourself find blessing. Well, good King Wenceslas understood the message of Jesus. Ye who now will help the poor, will bless the poor, shall yourself find blessing. How's that? Now, there is a church not so far from here that's called St. Wenceslas Catholic Church. It's in Spillville, Iowa. And I like that church. It's very beautiful. And there was a famous musician who lived there, and his name was Antonin Dvorak. And he did a symphony that's got one of my favorite tunes in it. It goes like this. Da 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 da. I'm just going home. Going home, Lord, I'm going home. Do 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 do. La la da 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 da. Lord, Now, if you go inside the church, which is called St. Wenceslaus Catholic Church, up at the front are life-size statues of Mary holding the baby Jesus and Joseph, her husband. Most churches don't even think about Joseph, do they? We love pictures of Virgin Mary holding the baby, but we sort of forget about Joseph. Now, there was a man who had a lot of curiosity. His name was Luke, and he was a traveling physician, and he traveled with the Apostle Paul for a long time until finally they got to Rome, and the Emperor Nero put Paul in prison. And so Luke left. Now, the Apostle Paul wrote lots of letters and had some wise things to say and did a lot of arguing, but he didn't know any stories about Jesus. Well, he'd never met him. Nope. He had good ideas, but he never met Jesus. And Luke decided, before he finished what he was going to write, which would be called the book of the Acts of the Apostles, decided he wanted to write a book about Jesus. So he took a trip to the Holy Land, and there he found stories that he'd never heard before. And one is about Mary, who was betrothed to a man named Joseph. Now, betrothed means that when they were still children, the parents made a bargain that when those two grew up, they got to get married to each other. And then, oh dear me, they discovered that Mary was pregnant. Oh. Well, Joseph thought, I suppose I'm going to have to say goodbye to her. But a messenger came to him in a dream, and the messenger's name was Gabriel, which means a man of God. Now, we'd call that person an angel, which is fine because angel means a messenger. But what we think they look like is not the case. All the messengers in the Bible are human, and they don't have wings. Now, there was a great Greek messenger who had wings on his feet because he could run so fast. And he was the one who ran 26 miles to tell the Athenians that they had won the battle. And that's why 26 miles is the length of a marathon. And he ran that along in that far in the plain of Marathon. Now, what we think of as angels are the cherubim and the seraphim who guarded the holy ark in the holy temple in Jerusalem. They were not messengers. They were scary guards. And a seraph was a winged snake designed to scare you away. And the cherub, he was a winged monster. We don't know what he looked like. But their job wasn't messengers. Their job was to keep people from messing around in front of the Ark of the Covenant. So, it was a messenger who told Joseph to take this woman as his wife. Well, we find out in the gospel stories that they lived together and they had 4 sons. Yep, 4. And one of them, the one we call James, became the president of the first congregation down in Jerusalem after Jesus had risen. And they had at least 2 daughters. And everybody knew their names. So, Mary and Joseph stayed married and had a family. That's what Luke learned as he checked things out. And I think it's terribly important to know that. Now, this idea of getting betrothed when you're still young, it can be good or it can be bad. Some people sort of sell their daughter to an old man. But betrothal is a good custom in a lot of places. Now, I had a student once who was a very good-looking guy, and he lived in Illinois. A lot of his people had come from Syria to escape persecution. And he was one of them. And he was a good soccer player. And he had an aunt who was here who was older than he, and she had already graduated. They were good people. And one day when he was sitting down to talk to me, because he liked to talk to me, because I like to listen. It's important. If you like to listen, people will talk. Anyway, I said, can't think of his name right now. There are, I think, a lot of young ladies who kind of like you a lot. Have you ever thought about that? Maybe. Maybe they'd think this guy would be a good husband. No, he hadn't thought of that. Oh. I said, well, do you plan to get married? Oh, yes. He said, as soon as I graduate from college, I'm going to go and meet my wife. I said, you've never met her? No, never met her. He said, I'm going to fly to Amman, Jordan. That's the capital of the country called Jordan. And there I'll meet her, and there we'll get married. I said, so your parents picked out your wife for you? Oh, yes, he said. They'd do a better job than I could do. What do you think of that? An arranged marriage, and it worked. Well, people have been doing that for a long, 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 long time. And I think he must have had a good marriage. A man like that would have a good marriage. Now, good marriages can happen if you just meet somebody and decide that's the one. Or maybe you went to school together. And that's a good way to get to know the other person, and that can make a good marriage. But marriages don't always work out. We can meet somebody and find out we don't really know them that well. I have one son whose first marriage just wasn't working. And my wife said, you go down to Iowa City and tell them that they shouldn't get a divorce. Well, I first met with a lady who was a police officer, and I could tell she wanted a divorce. So I slept that night in my son's house. He had moved out already. And I said, what do you think? And he said, Dad, we should be growing together, but we're growing apart. So I thought, well, that's that. So I said, don't get a lawyer. Just go to the courthouse. We decide ahead of time who gets what and who lives where. And you can settle it all at the courthouse. And as I recall, the divorce cost them $72. And they stayed friends afterwards. How do you like that? Well, time went on. He moved to another place. He had to move because things just weren't the right place for him at the University of Iowa. And I found out later on that she had tried getting married. And it was about 3 years ago, in the fall, that I had a knock at the door. No, I had a phone call. I answered and she said, "This is Deb." I said, "Where are you?" She said, "I'm at your front door." And she walked through and started to cry a lot and gave me a hug. Then she told me a sad story. Well, first of all, she was a police officer and she'd gone for special training at the school where FBI people train. And her specialty was going into homes where there were a lot of trouble, a lot of abuse, a lot of sin. And I don't know where she got hurt, but she was injured, and so she got a lifelong pension from the police station. And she got married to a guy until she found out this guy was having affairs with other women. So she got her second divorce and had a boy who turned out to be autistic, and that's quite a challenge. But this year again, I got a lovely, lovely Christmas card from Deb. And a picture of her boy. Very good-looking boy. And he's about a sophomore at the university now. Well, after bad things happen, good things can happen. And do we make mistakes? Oh, yes, we make mistakes. And you can't live without making mistakes. You just can't. But mistakes are a way to learn. And when you make a big mistake, you learn it all the better. Well, let's try a little more of that good King Wenceslas song. Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen, when the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even. Brightly shone the moon that night, though the frost was cruel, when a poor man came in sight, gathering winter fuel. And then he asked the page where this man lives, and he decided he should help him. And so the last verse is, in his master's steps he trod, where the snow lay dinted. Heat was in the very sod which the saint had printed. Therefore, Christian men, be sure, wealth or rank possessing, ye who now will bless the poor, shall yourself find blessing. And that's a very good lesson. Well, sure is chilly out, but I got out skiing, and I like to ski, and I've been out 11 times already, but I found out that once a day is enough. So, I hope good things happen to you, and I hope you have as good a year as possible, because if we watch it, good things can happen even if the world is having lots and lots of problems.